Hi, everybody. I'm Lori Gardner. I'm the director of the Human Services Program at Northeastern University, and we're doing a series of interviews with our alumni to learn more about the ways that COVID-19 is impacting their work. These are unedited and unscripted, and they are imperfect, so just please keep that in mind. So today I'm chatting with Rachel Klein. Rachel is a licensed independent clinical social worker. She graduated summa cum laude from Northeastern in 2010. And she, as a student, was the president of the Human Services Organization, our student club, and was a service learning teaching assistant. After graduating, she worked for a year in a residential program that served youth in Ecuador, and she then went on to earn her MSW with trauma certification from Boston University. As a graduate student, she was a behavioral health intern at a community health center and a domestic violence advocate at the Brigham and Women's Hospital. After completing her master's, she served as the Women's Center supervisor and mental health clinician at St. Francis House, a shelter serving people who are experiencing homelessness. And she currently serves as the shelter manager at the Women's Lunch Place. So Rachel, tell us about the Women's Lunch Place.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for doing these interviews. This is such a great way to stay connected during this time. So Women's Lunch Place is a daytime shelter for poor and homeless women in downtown Boston. We are open 7 to 2, Monday to Saturday, and we'll serve up to 200 women a day. On a typical day, we provide breakfast and lunch, showers and laundry. We have a nap room. We provide toiletries, emergency clothing, and transportation passes as needed. We have a creative expressions art program, a resource center with phones and computers. We have advocates on site who can meet with folks one-on-one. We have healthcare available. We have special events, so things like yoga, manicures, birthday celebrations, really anything that can just help, treat the women with dignity and respect, meet them where they're at, and offer any needs that they might present with.
Amazing. Tell us about your role, Rachel. What are you working on?
So I'm the shelter manager, which means that I oversee the day-to-day operations of the shelter. This includes supervising staff, responding to guest needs as they arise, and overseeing any of the special events or activities that might be happening during that day. One of the bigger projects that we've been working on is hoping to revamp our clinical internship program. This would allow us to have clinical social work interns on site. A lot of our guests are experiencing chronic homelessness as a result of untreated mental health, substance use disorder, unresolved trauma, all while, working to obtain or sustain housing and employment, maintain their physical health. And so there's just so many complex needs that come up at the shelter. And I think having that specialized support available to them on site would be really helpful. And then in general, as an agency, we're always looking to improve, seeing what services we offer and what things we could or should be doing differently. At the end of the day, we're always trying to be guest-centered and putting the needs of the guests front and center. And then everything else kind of flows from that, so that way we can continue to offer really wraparound holistic care to anyone who comes to us.
Amazing. Great. So tell us a little bit about how COVID-19 is impacting your work and the folks that you're serving.
Yeah, so the pandemic has very much changed our day-to-day work. We're still open 6 days a week, but we've shifted temporarily to a takeout model. So we're able to provide breakfast and lunch bagged to go at the door. And then we're still offering any other toiletries or essential items that the ladies might need, whether it's a pair of socks, an umbrella, hats, gloves, and scarves, a change of clothing, really anything that somebody might need to make themselves more comfortable, we're still able to pass out at the door. So the three core parts of our mission, which are healthy meals, direct care, and advocacy, that's all still at the forefront and still happening during all of this. It just looks very different. So for example, our advocates have been reaching out to folks on their caseload, on the phone, doing outreach outside and talking to them on the phone that way. We've also started boxing up meals and groceries and delivering them to some of our housed folks, particularly those who are older and maybe more vulnerable and homebound, those who aren't able to go to the store. Most of our ladies come to us for the food, but so much of what people come for is also the community sense. So it's definitely been a shift, and it's been challenging for some of our ladies, which is why these home visits and just still interacting with guests at the door and offering services and support has been really essential. And then things have also changed for our staff. We are heavily volunteer run, and our wonderful volunteers aren't able to come in these days. And so our staff have just gone above and beyond the call of duty every day, whether it's chopping vegetables or meeting with a guest outside on a park bench instead of in their office, of course, while still maintaining 6 feet apart. And just trying to be as creative as we can to consistently continue to meet the needs of our guests. So things have definitely changed, but we're still open and still serving the ladies as they come to the door.
Great. Thanks, Rachel. What would you hope or wish that people knew about women who experience homelessness?
So something I think that people are really starting to see now is just how quickly circumstances can change for anyone, and how close maybe they themselves might be to struggling to pay their rent and to pay their bills. Every woman who comes to our door has a unique story. She got there a different way and with her own history. Um, our women are so incredibly resilient. They have so much strength always, and particularly now during these uncertain times. And I just think that there can be so much stigma around the homeless population and how somebody may have ended up there. But again, everyone has their own story. And some of those stories started with jobs and with apartments. And what sometimes they'll say is, I had a normal life and then something changed and happened to me. It might not have been a global pandemic, but it was catastrophic for her in her own way. This week, an unprecedented number of people have applied for unemployment. And that's something that can often come with a lot of shame and stigma. And it's a support that's meant to be there to help people who fall on hard times. And I hope that people see that now. It's not through some fault of anyone's character, but someone just really needs a bit of help. And I think so many folks are fortunate to have financial, familial support from friends. For many women, Women's Lunch Place is that safety net. And so that's why we're still there and we're still open. But I think it's really important just to remember that there's no us and them. I mean, any of us could just be a couple paychecks away from needing some help. And I'm hoping that people maybe are more understanding of that now. And then, since I have this platform, something I wish people would know is that we're always hiring. And so once things start to return to some normalcy, definitely reach out if you might be looking for a job in the field.
Right. Well, and our students are graduating in a couple of weeks, so they may be.
Exactly. Reach on out.
Good. So what are things people can do, some concrete steps that people can take or ways that they can support folks in these circumstances?
Yeah, there's so many ways to support this work, both now and in the future. We're always grateful for financial and in-kind support so we can continue to provide these services. People have been really fantastic at doing different drives and donating toiletries, hand sanitizers, feminine hygiene products, socks, tissue packets, non-perishable food items, really anything that might just help someone be more comfortable and get through the day. Gift cards have been really essential. We've been able to pass those out to some folks and allow them to buy some of their needs. Even if you can just, $5 or $10 on a Dunkin' Donuts gift card. So somebody who's staying out can, get a cup of coffee. Really, I think a little bit of kindness goes a long way all the time, but particularly now.
Great. So just kind of wrapping us up, Rachel, looking forward, what are some of your hopes for the work once we do resume some level of normalcy, best practices, shifts in policy? And it sounds like already just hopefully people have a little bit of a more complex understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have such high hopes for this work once we resume some normalcy. Now more than ever, I think it's really critical how, it's so clear how critical these services are. The number of guests that we serve who are older, over the age of 60, has been increasing steadily over the past few years. And I think this pandemic has highlighted some of the unique vulnerabilities of our older population. And we know that when somebody, let's say, is newly housed and gets keys to an apartment, their journey doesn't end. And so there's still lots of stabilization work that needs to happen to keep folks housed. We actually, prior to the pandemic, we were looking at expanding our stabilization services. But this pandemic has really given us a unique firsthand look at what some of those needs might be and what that might look like. Just a quick example, our advocacy manager went to drop off a box of food for one of her clients. She called her to check in, and her client said that, due to some, she has some underlying medical issues and she's older, so she was scared to go to the grocery store. So we thought it was just going to be a quick drop off and hello. But when she went inside, saw that the apartment was completely unfurnished. I mean, she didn't have a sofa. Her fridge was completely empty. Our staff member kept saying, I remember, she didn't even have ketchup in her fridge, nothing. And so we gave her a gift card to a grocery store. Our staff member actually went back later that day with toilet paper and toiletries and just a couple things to make her more comfortable. And this is a guest who we know and who was housed. And again, typically the bulk of our work with somebody might end once she's housed, but there's still lots of unique opportunities to continue working with folks. And she didn't want to ask for help. She felt like she was housed, and so someone else needed the help more than her. So without having done this home visit, which we don't typically do, we never would have known how much this woman was still struggling. And so I think the silver lining of this pandemic really has been a new creative way to work with our guests. And I'm hoping that we can continue to expand that once we do return to normalcy. And then just when it comes to policy and shifts in our understanding, I think it's super important to recognize how easily this population can fall through the cracks. Advice that we're all hearing are things like stay home, wash your hands regularly, socially isolate and distance from other people. If you're homeless, this just isn't always possible. Our guests are reading the same news that we are. They're hearing the same information that we all are. And they're scared. They know that they're not able to comply. If you don't have access to a clean bathroom, if you're staying in a crowded shelter with lots of other people around you and you have nowhere else to go, you want to be part of flattening the curve and listening to all the advice that you're taking and all the advice you're hearing, but you just don't always have the resources to do that if you're a homeless woman just trying to make ends meet. And so I think, a lot of these recommendations are out of reach for our guests and they need to be safe as well and included in the conversation. So I just think it's so important to keep this community and all vulnerable and underrepresented communities at the forefront, at the conversation, at the table when decisions are being made about policies, because it's really easy to have them fall through the cracks when these important decisions are being made.
Mm-hmm. Great. Rachel, thank you so much. We're so glad to keep in touch with you. And if anyone has any questions or comments for Rachel, you can post them in the comments. This will be in the Northeastern Human Services group page on Facebook. And, I'm sure she'd be happy to talk to you more about her work. Thanks again, Rachel.
Yeah, thank you so much.